The Galactic Council reviews the troubling rumors. A dead world called Earth, a species that vanished, and legends of humans turning entire fleets to ash. Most call it myth. One calls it a mistake. Then something pings at the edge of the Orion. Barrier. The council chamber of 9 blades shimmered in low orbit above Vex Prime, its obsidian spires jutting into nothing. 10,000 lights burned along its edge, each representing a species once conquered, now compliant, all but one. "We are chasing ghosts," Chancellor Rollith hissed, his gills twitching in disdain. "Earth is a ruin. Their kind died centuries ago." "Correction," murmured a deeper voice. "We lost contact centuries ago. We never confirmed extinction." That voice came from the Warden Seer of Joel, blindfolded, still. Unnerving. High Admiral Tovek bared his rows of fangs in a grin. Even if humans were real, they never warranted fear. Their world was primitive, their biology inefficient, their minds emotionally unstable. "Unstable," the seer echoed. "Yes, like stars before they collapse." AVD spike, the chamber. Dimmed as if responding to the weight of her words, a silent moment passed. A single mote of dust spun in the beam of a gravity fan. It struck no one, but every eye followed it, as if it carried warning. Then the Chancellor broke the spell. "We have more urgent matters. Jarakian raiders are flanking the Helix border." That's when the light-fractured dot and emergency holopulse flared to life mid-chamber. No encryption. No authorization. Origin. Orion exclusion zone. Classification. Red level ping. Signal phrase. Echo detected. Every voice stopped. "You said Earth was dead," the seer whispered. "Then why is it whispering?" "Pull the data," Tovek barked. The holopulse played the ping. Not a voice. Not a warning. Just sound. Breathing. Human breathing. Labored. Calm. Followed by 3 words. "We see you." AVD spike. In the dead reaches of Orion, a fleet moved. It wasn't broadcasting. It wasn't cloaked. It was empty. No life signs aboard. But every hull bore one name. Human Expeditionary Remnant, HERMF. A lie. A thing told to scare children of empires. Bat. In the chamber, Seergil rose slowly. Her mouth didn't move, but her voice filled the minds of all 10,000. They thought humans were legends, and now they've arrived. Admiral Tovek stood. "Even if it's real, we have power unmatched. They come with relics. We come with sons." Seergil smiled. "For the first time in 4,000 years, you come with arrogance." She turned toward the stars. "And they come with silence." The alien fleet closes in, confused by Earth's silence. But aboard the ancient human vessel Waking Iron, silence is a strategy and memory is the weapon. One fleet watches. The other waits. And deep inside, a voice prepares to speak. The Waking Iron drifted in high Earth orbit, silent and deliberate, like a knife forgotten on the edge of a table. Its hull was scarred from wars no one recorded, its frame patched with metals the council fleets didn't even recognize. Nothing about it should have worked, and yet it did. The ship breathed with a slow, steady hum, like a predator conserving. Its heartbeat. Captain Alina Voss stood motionless before the main viewport, watching the alien armada close in like vultures orbiting a corpse they didn't realize was still warm. Their ships were beautiful, sleek, gilded, radiating dominance. The kind of beauty that only came from thousands of victories. She smiled faintly. That was the mistake. Victory breeds blindness. How long until they know we're not ghosts? She asked, her voice low and level. 2 hours if they're careful, replied LT Ria Jin, her cybernetic eye flickering as she scanned signals. 10 minutes if they're arrogant. Voss didn't respond. She didn't need to. The answer was, already crawling across the silence between them, embedded in the static that hummed through Council sensors. A faint pulse, breathing, rhythmic, measured, intentional. They weren't cloaked, they weren't hiding, they were simply waiting. The ship's AI voice stirred over the intercom. Quiet and toneless. 73% probability, Council. Observers believe human extinction occurred 201 years ago. Probability, they believe that was a mistake, rising. Behind the calmness of steel and silence, memories stirred in the lower decks. Among old banners and patched armor, Sergeant Jake Marlowe adjusted the edge of a blade older than most of the crew. The younger soldiers didn't speak. They watched. Watched how methodically he worked. One of them, Essen, swallowed hard. Sir, you really think they're scared of us? No, Marlowe muttered. They're scared of what they didn't see. What they didn't finish. He stood, blade in hand, and stabbed it into the floor plating. They think they killed us. But humans don't end with death. We end with memory. Above them, the Council fleet ran diagnostics in panic's quiet shadow. No human signals, no attack patterns. And yet, something in the data felt alive. Admiral Vex snarled as reports came in human vessels showing no aggression, no movement, no shields. They're mocking us, he said. One of his officers hesitated. Admiral ... The ships are breathing. Vex turned slowly. Say that again. Their thermal signatures. Internal heat cycling. No defensive posture. Just synchronized metabolic patterns, like a group meditation. That's when it happened. A single ping. No encryption. No language. Just a child's voice across every channel the Council had. You forgot us, we didn't. In the silence that followed, half the fleet's crew froze. The voice wasn't angry. It wasn't sad. It was ... remembering. That was worse. Back aboard the waking iron, Voss closed her eyes as the signal bounced through the stars. This wasn't an attack. Not yet. This was something older. Something colder. This was grief. WEAPONIZED.L. Jin turned toward her, uneasy. If we wait any longer, they might fire. Voss nodded. They might, but not before blinking. The AI chimed in. Enemy command structure showing hesitation. Psychological resistance increasing. Good, Voss said. Let it grow. She stepped forward and activated the ship's pulse system, an ancient relay encoded with the memories of burned cities, collapsed moons, and abandoned colonies. It didn't fire anything. It simply opened. Across the void, Council ships started. Receiving something they couldn't categorize, not an attack. Not a signal, just ... feeling. A young mother burned beneath rubble. A pilot's last breath. A child's drawing found in the ruins of a collapsed dome. One by one, the alien officers began hearing names they'd never learned, seeing faces they'd never seen, and somehow missing them. The High Admiral's voice snapped over the fleet-wide. Comes. Shut it down now. But there was nothing to shut, because it wasn't broadcasting. The humans were simply remembering too loud. And the stars were listening. Back aboard the Council flagship, one soldier pressed his clod, hand against his helmet, and wept. They showed me a woman. She was holding my hand. I didn't know her, but I think I loved her. Admiral Vex roared in fury. They're tricking you. But it wasn't a trick. It was a mirror, and the Council didn't like what it saw on the human ship. Voss whispered one last order. Record this silence. They'll never forget it. And just before she cut the channel, she added, quiet as frost, this isn't retaliation. This is remembrance. The Council misreads silence for hesitation until the first human ship moves. But what they expect To be a desperate display turns out to be something much colder, a message, a warning, a reminder that extinction has a memory. The first to blink wasn't a ship. It was a lieutenant. Inside the bridge of the Council vessel Valrix, a young tactical officer species unknown. Nerve's obvious glanced at the human fleet and swallowed air he suddenly found hard to breathe. It was the rhythm. That cursed rhythm. The human ships weren't moving, yet everything about them pulsed with coordination, like they were breathing in unison, like a prayer in reverse. "They're sinking to us," he muttered. "No, they're sinking around us." His superior turned to him sharply. "They're inactive, no energy buildup, no offensive signals." "That's what's wrong." The lieutenant snapped. "They're not reacting. They single quotes re ... Observing. There was a pause. Then a flicker. On the edge of the formation, one of the smaller human ships shifted slightly. Just a thruster correction. Barely a nudge. But two. The entire alien fleet trained on silence? It was thunder. The shift was elegant, almost absent-minded. Like brushing dust off a shoulder, Talvek watched from his flagship, jaws clenched. What was that? No known formation adjustment. No weapons activated. It looked like a pivot. A pivot to what? No one answered. Because no one. New dot back on the waking iron, Captain Voss exhaled softly. "They blinked, LT." Jin raised an eyebrow. "That counts?" "Oh, it counts," Voss replied. "They're second-guessing. That means fear's taken root." Behind them, the ship's AI whispered in its neutral monotone. "Fear analysis across Council fleet up 19%. Command hesitations recorded on 14. Vessels. 2 have begun evasive energy cycling." Jake Marlowe stood in the corner of the bridge, arms folded. "You know what I don't get?" he said, nodding toward the flickering alien holograms on their display. "They always called us unpredictable. But they're the ones panicking when we just ... sit still." Voss didn't smile. "That's because they think fear only lives in noise, not in silence." She turned to the comms console. "Prep the first payload. No weapons. Just the recording." "Which one?" asked Jin. "The girl, with the dog." Jin flinched. "You sure? She was 7. If they can't handle that memory, they don't deserve to orbit our planet." The recording was cued. "Sent on every open frequency. No encryption. No warning. A grainy audio log played across space. A child giggling. Wind chimes. Barking. Then a sudden sound metal crashing. A pause. A single, shaking breath. Then the child's voice, barely a whisper. "Mommy's gone. But I'm still here." Then silence. Then just static. The Council fleet reeled. Dozens of alien officers across different ships clutched at their consoles as the file played, not because of its violence, but because of what it lacked. No threat, no declaration, just the echo of loss. And that made it worse. Inside the Council intelligence ship Aura, a strategist gripped his temples and shouted over the broadcast, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" But it wouldn't stop because the humans hadn't sent a message. They'd sent a presence. And the void couldn't block memory. Tovek barked orders, but the fleet was no longer in sync. Formation staggered. Shield cycles began to oscillate out of pattern. Weapons were being armed not by protocol but out of sheer anxiety. And all the while, the human ships just floated, watching. Breathing. Voss watched from her viewport. "They're cracking." Jin's voice trembled slightly. "You think they'll attack?" "No," Voss said. "They'll retreat. Or worse, overreact." Then, as if summoned by prophecy, a single Council ship mid-tier, Patrol class, launched a plasma burst toward one of the human ships on the left flank. It was a panic. Shot. UNORDERED. Uncalculated. And completely futile. The bolt crossed the distance between fleets and stopped mid-space. Dead. Harmless. It hadn't. Then intercepted. Had simply vanished. Vos didn't move. You seeing this? Jin nodded. Confirmed. No defensive action on our side. Bolt dissolved. Marlowe stared at the screen. Could it be our relay field? No, the AI answered. Calmly. Relay field is passive. Bolt termination originated ... from their side. Vos tilted her head. They killed their own shot, she smiled. Just a little. Just enough. That means someone over there still remembers what happened to Balleries. Jin turned. You think? They still believe that was an anomaly? They want to, Vos said. But that bolt? That was someone blinking twice. Inside the Valrics, the young lieutenant stared at the screen in horror. They stopped their own weapon. Why would they? Why? His commander's voice shook, because if that had hit them, the humans might have replied. The realization swept through the bridge like poison, because Earth hadn't responded. Not yet. The AI voice returned in the waking iron. Council fleet entering psychological destabilization phase. Estimated time to withdrawal, 39 minutes. Suggested next step, release Phase 2 memory stream. Marlowe raised an eyebrow. What's Phase 2? Vos turned. The one with the laughter. The one with the dome? She nodded. He looked at her for a long time. That one makes me sick. That's the point, she said. We made peace with our dead. Let's see if they can. The Council hesitates, but Earth remembers. A new memory transmission reveals one of the war's buried atrocities, the dome. The aliens thought it was a necessary purge. Humans remembered it differently, not as destruction, but as betrayal. And this time, someone inside the alien fleet starts to question everything. The file was silent at first. Just static. Then a child's laughter, distant and echoing, like it had been trapped beneath glass for too long. A second later, the image flickered into view over 1,000 council ships watching the same footage at once. A dome. White, perfect. Clean. Inside. Grass, trees, a small colony, no weapons. No bunkers. Just children chasing each other through sprinklers, and then, without warning, it lit up like a star. There was no sound. The memory had none. But every alien who saw it felt the absence, the silence, the pause between innocence and fire. The humans didn't edit the clip. They didn't need to, because the Council had filmed it themselves. Inside the bridge of the Council command ship Rollick, Admiral Tavek's face drained of color. They weren't supposed to have this, he rasped. That footage was sealed. Sir, an aide said quietly, this wasn't extracted. This was recorded from inside the dome. The realization hit like a blade. One of the victims had filmed their own extinction. Back on the waking iron, Jin didn't speak as the last frame held, a little. Boy standing near the glass edge, holding up a hand. As if waving goodbye. As if forgiving them. She blinked rapidly and looked away. Why this one? Captain Vos stood still. Because the Council buried it, which means it worked. And if they deny it? They won't, said a new voice behind them. Marlowe stepped forward, jaw clenched. Because the man who ordered the dome strike is still in command. And that boy? His name was Elias. Jin turned, stunned. You knew him? No, Marlowe said. I was him. She staggered. What, how? He opened his palm. Embedded there, a glass shard, fractured, preserved. A relic of the dome that hadn't vaporized him. I was on the outer rim. Near the power conduit, it shielded me. He looked up, voice low and razor sharp. They thought I died with the rest. Vos spoke carefully. He didn't just survive, he remembered. That's why we built the archive fleet around his mind. Jin's voice dropped. Wait, The fleet? Marlowe nodded. Every ship is keyed to a memory, my memory. In the Council fleet, alarms started blinking mild at first. Then sharp. Then relentless. Shipwide systems flagged increasing psychological desync. Command chains jittered. Officers grew quiet. One by one, captains stopped issuing orders, and aboard the Veilrix, the young lieutenant who first doubted now spoke freely. This wasn't a war. This was a purge. His commander turned sharply. Careful what you say. No, the lieutenant said, standing. You be careful. Because if I was lied to about this, then I don't know who I'm fighting anymore. The commander growled. You're fighting primitives, savages. They built a memory weapon, the lieutenant said, and they aimed it at our conscience. Across the fleet, officers began to speak in hushed tones. What else did they survive? Why didn't they fight back earlier? Why are they still watching? And always the same final question. What if this is only the beginning? Back on Earth, deep beneath the Pacific Archive Vault, an ancient AI known only as Gaia 3 pulsed awake. Encrypted pulses traveled through old planetary relay buoys, then upwards into space. Every human ship in orbit received the same line of code. Priority shift. Vindication level 1 on the waking iron. Voss felt the hum change. The AI spoke. Earth has authorized memory level 3. Jin stared. That's the betrayal file. Marlowe didn't hesitate. Play it. But before the file could launch a voice, across council comes. Clear. Shaken. This is Captain Niril of the Axuran Blade. Silence followed. Then. I am deactivating my weapons. This is not war. This is memory. And we were wrong. Gasps echoed through the council fleet. Someone had defected. Tovek bellowed. Cut his channel. But it was too late. Another voice. This is Farlick 7. Standing down. Then another. Yershal Striker. Powering down shields. Then another. And another. 20 ships. Then 30-5. Silence hadn't caused this. Truth had. The dome wasn't just glass and grass. It was a mirror, and the council could no longer look. Inside the waking iron, Jin whispered, It's working. Marlowe didn't smile. No, it's starting. Voss leaned forward. Prep memory level 3. This isn't for vengeance. It's to remind them what humanity did when we had nothing left to lose. With the truth unraveling, the alien fleet begins to fracture, but Earth never fires a shot. The final move isn't war, it's withdrawal. Because for humans, the memory was never about victory. It was about making them remember who started this. They expected retribution, and when it didn't come, the fear only grew. Half the council fleet was already in retreat, systems powered down, communications open, commands revoked. The other half stood paralyzed, orbiting silently around the fleet of Earth's memory warships, waiting for the hammer that never fell. It never would. Not from Earth. Not anymore. On board the waking iron, Voss leaned back in her chair and gave the simplest order in human military history. Stand down. Full fleet, let them leave. Jin blinked. That's it. Marlowe answered, voice flat. No, that's everything. The council fleet had burned cities, crushed colonies, glassed the dome, then buried it under silence. And now Earth returned. That silence perfectly, poetically. Not as surrender. As judgment. Inside the Veilrix, the young lieutenant no longer looked at the humans with hatred. Just regret. Why aren't they striking? He asked. We're open. They could destroy us. Tovek sat slumped in his command chair, voice hollow. Because they already did. The lieutenant didn't understand. Then he did. They hadn't. Attacked the council ships. They'd attacked their belief that they were righteous. That humanity was weak. That silence meant compliance. It didn't. It meant patience. Now? It meant they remembered. Back on Earth, the sky shimmered with streaks of alien engines breaking orbit. No one fired. No one chased. The war was not won. By force. It was ended by memory. And the world that had once watched its own Domeburn now stood whole beneath a quiet sky. In orbit, the human fleet remained motionless. No pursuit. No pride. Just presence. Captain Voss stood from her chair and looked at her crew. They came to measure our strength, she said. Instead, they found our scars. Jin wiped her eyes, whispering, and they weren't ready for them. Marlowe turned to the viewport, the earth glowing blue beneath them. I told you, he said. They thought it was mercy. He paused. It wasn't.